Once again, let me start this class. This is the lecture number 11 of the deep learning course. In this particular session, we are going to talk about how can we initialize the weight, and what is the theory behind this, and few more things we are going to see in today's class that are actually very important to understand. And let us start. To understand these things, I need your support because I would be asking few questions. If you can answer, that would be very good. So there is one very important point that the into the machine learning domain people actually do, that whenever there is some output, they want to do some kind of encoding. And there is one method called the one hot encoding. So actually the question they try to solve is this: that assume that there are five classes. Okay, let's assume that we have five classes. Okay, five classes. Let me, just for the sake of example only, so let's assume these classes are cat, dog, bus, plant, and apple. Okay, these are the classes. So if you want to make a neural network based system where let's assume that images of these cat, dog, bus, and plant and apple are given, and you want to predict that which particular item is there. So you know that the technique is going to be that you are going to create a neural network, and at the final layer you are going to put some of the output. So this output is going to and here you are going to provide the image and an input. So at the output layer, the question is that how should you represent the cat, dog, bus, and plant. Okay, the question is that how can you represent the bus and cat, plant, and apple. So you can say that if the output is going to be, for example, 0 0 0 1, then it is cat, 0 1 0 dog, 0 1 1 bus, 1 0 0 plant, 1 0 1 is apple. You can say like that because you can create a code for each of them, and you say that because three inputs are actually sufficient. Make sense? Three inputs are sufficient. So the general method is only this, that you are going to use this kind of thing, and you can go ahead with the network training, and then you are expecting that the output should be 0 0 1. If it is 1 0 1, then there is some difference, and you actually take it as a error, and then you back propagate and adjust the network parameter. At the end, what is going to happen, that all the things are going to have the weight such that this kind of output we are going to produce. So training is possible, we can do a training, and then we can get the result. But there are few fundamental questions that we have to understand, that why we should not use this kind of coding. Instead, we should go to use this kind of coding where for every item there is one bit. Okay, and this bit is one if that particular item is there. So how many items were there? One, two, three, four, five. So five bits are needed. How many bits are needed? In this kind of arrangement, five bits are needed. You have seen that this the same thing can be done with the three bits. And I'm going to tell you that this method is not good. Using three bits is not good. You must have to use five bits. So it is contrary to your understanding. But why we are telling this? If I am going to use this kind of coding mechanism, this coding mechanism is called the one hot encoding. Okay. All right. So let me tell you something. So I have a question for you. The first question is this: what is the average of cat and bus? Are you able to understand the question? You know that cat is 0 0 1. What is bus? Bus is 0 1 1. What is the summation of these two quantity? 1 0 0. Am I right or am I wrong?
Yes,
What
sir.
is the, so let me make it half. What is the half of this particular quantity? It is 0 1 0. Okay. What is 0 1 0? It is dog. Am I right? It is dog. So average of cat and bus is dog. Do you think that it is right thing to be done? Do you understand? Everybody is okay with this? That the average of cat and dog is what? Cat and bus is dog, because of this kind of coding. So if I change the code to something else, so there will be some other relationship. Point is this, that whether this relationship is have whether this relationship has any kind of significance. If it does not have any kind of significance, then why it is coming from my data, my learning system? So that's a wrong thing. Understand? So this was a problem, that there is a issue into this in these kind of systems. Let me also find out something. For example, determine the similarity. Let me explore that. What is the similarity between cat and dog? So can you find out that what is the similarity between cat and dog? You know that cat is 0, 0, 1 and dog is 0, 1, 0. So what is the similarity? Looks like the similarity is 0. Let me assume that when the into both the codes, if the value is 1, then I'm going to say that those many bits are similar. 0, let me avoid, because 0 is mostly into the sparse representations. We think that 0 is not a data. So there is no similarity. But what is the similarity between cat and bus? Cat is 0, 0, 1 and bus is 0, 1, 1. So you can see that there is one similarity. Again, it may not be a right thing to say, because you can see that there is a underlying similarity between cat and bus, but there is no similarity between cat and dog. Why? How come they are similar? We think that whenever we have few classes, for example, into the general setting, when I'm telling that the items are into 5 classes, so these 5 classes are different values. They cannot be, there cannot be a similarity between those classes. We generally assume we have our classes are should be mutually exclusive. We cannot be possible the item is similar. If it is cat, it is something like that, the bus. It happens into the real life scenario, but whether we want to model this thing in our system, the answer is not. We are not going to model this. This is not my purpose to model this thing. But if this kind of modeling is happening, then definitely it is not our requirement, and it is not our specification. Then it means that it is not useful. So this is the second problem. Okay. Again, see two different kind of codes where I'm going to see the what is the code for plant. You know that the code for plant is 1, 0, 0. What is the code for apple? Apple is 1, 0, 1. Okay. So what is going to happen that if you are going to train the network, if you're going to train the network for the plant, so this is the only place where if there is a problem, I am very much concerned that this value should be 1. Okay, but into the case of apple, I am going to see at the two places. Okay, I am going to see at the two places that whether this is going to change or not. So you can think that while updating the weights for the apple, I would be having more weight. Okay, I would be having I would be change my weights are going to change much, because the at the two places I am going to have the change. So the if all the classes are not going to be treated equally. Some classes are there which are going to be treated more in terms of the weights updates. So weight update for the apple is going to be strong as compared to the weight update for the plant, because here is only one place is on, here two places is on. These are the some of the problems that if we go in this kind of coding, then we are actually going to have these kind of problems. So that's why people actually go for the one hot encoding. That means that whenever you are going to make a model, at the end, at the final layer, you have to how many neurons you have, to the equal to the number of classes, equal to the number of classes. So we have discovered that issues that lead to the code 2 means one hot encoding are this, that ordinal relationship should not be present. Ordinal means there should be order. Okay, if you have seen that similarity between cat and dog is actually less than the similarity between cat and bus, then you can put a kind of order. And this is, you can see that there is an underlying order, that this is the first item, second item, third item, fourth item, fifth item. So ordinal relationship, there should not be order into the data. Okay, similarity between the classes should be avoided, as we expect that the classes are orthogonal and there is no relationship between them. So this understanding should not be, should be preserved. So last, as also we have seen that the laws that we have, they sometimes favor to one particular attribute. That is also not a good idea. So these are the issues. That's why we go for the one hot encoding. I think it is should be clear to you that what is one hot encoding. One hot encoding is for every class you are going to reserve a bit, and therefore the cat becomes 1 0 0 0 0, dog becomes 0 1 0 0 0, bus becomes 0 1 is 0 0 1 0 0, and plant 0 0 0 1 0, apple 0 0 0 0 and 1. If you just try to see all these number into a 5-dimensional space, if you want to see that all these things into the 5-dimensional space, so you can see that all these points are actually at equidistance from the center, and they are orthogonal. This is what we wanted into my data. So this is the better representation. That's why one hot encoding is needed whenever you are going to make the things. Any question? What does orthogonal class means? So hope it is clear to you what is orthogonal class means, because now you can see that into the vector space things are actually orthogonal to each other, because these vector, these, if you want to find out what is the angle between them, it is going to be 90. Make sense? So there was a question from Anirudh. I think it has been answered. So this is a very important thing. Okay. Now let us try to understand some of the basic design principles of the deep learning. So you know that Yun Lee Kun is a big researcher. He has defined, he have talked about the deep learning into this particular way, that deep learning is a, what is deep learning? Deep learning is constructing network. Obviously, we are talking about the neural networks. So deep learning is constructing neural networks of parameterized function modules. So this deep learning is what is this network going to be? This network is going to be a parameterized function modules. What does it mean? That you are going to have various functional module and they are parameterized. Means if you change the parameter, function are going to behave differently, but they, since you know that there is a task of the function, and if you change the parameter, things are going to change. For example, if you have a function, for example, sin x, you know that sin x has a general representation of sin x is a sin bx plus c, this kind of formula, where a is a parameter, b is a parameter, c is a parameter. If you use abc, different values of abc, you may be getting different kind of curves. So we are going to build the functional modules, various functional modules, and they are parameterized, and you are going to make a network of this. What do I mean by this? That somewhere for example, what it means, that actually, let's assume that this is the neural network. Okay, neural network. So you can see that these things are one functional module, these things are another functional module, these things are another functional module. The various functional modules are there one by one. Try to understand this part, that everything that is there into the network is going to play a different kind of role. If, because when we have a deep learning means I am going to make the big network. So different kind of parameterized functional modules are there, and we are going to do the training. Means when we want to obtain the what is the parameter, what is the weight vectors over here, we are going to show them example, and we are going to train them using example. When I'm going to show them the example, then how can I find out the parameter? So as we have seen earlier also, that there are direct methods. If you have the data and you want to find out the parameter, you can apply the pseudo inverse kind of methods and find out the inverse and multiply. For example, if I say that a multiplied by x is equal to y, so if you want to find out that what is the value of x, you say that a inverse into y. So if you can find out the inverse of this thing and apply it over there, then definitely you can immediately find out the value of x. So if you want to find out the value of parameter, you can explain them. You can express this particular problem in terms of the linear equations, and then you can do a kind of uh, mathematical operations to immediately find out the value. But this is not our task. Our task is not this into the deep learning domain. Our task is to use gradient descent. Okay, to use gradient based methods such as gradient descent to find out the optimal parameters. Okay, very interesting definition that I came across. So I thought that I should put it in front of you. So when very important thing is this that that I wanted to highlight, that you should focus that you are going to make functional modules. So till now we have not talked about this. Till now we are thinking that if there is a problem, I'm going to solve that. But you also know that whenever there is a problem, there are multiple stages when you want to solve that particular problem. For example, even this simple example, when I have a image of cat and I want to find out that whether this image contains cat or not. So what you do, generally you take this image and do a enhancement. Okay, because the original image may not be that much suitable. So if you do an enhancement, you can be better representing the image. After the enhancement, after the enhancement, you sometimes find out the region of interest. So you focus on a particular part, or you say that attention, you bring your attention to a particular part where you think that there is a possibility of being cat, and then you extract that particular part. You you extract the feature the for that particular region, and then on that feature you apply a classifier. So this is the general pipeline. Whenever you want to build a system, you take the image and you do an enhancement or any kind of modification that make it suitable for your input. Maybe resizing and all other things are actually comes into this particular place. Then you cut the region of interest that is of your that is you actually are focusing on, maybe using the attention or any other mechanism. Then you extract the feature and then you apply a classifier. So if you want to build a neural network, you must have the understanding that given the image, there would be some part, some neural network part that is going to do enhancement, some neural network part that is going to do this ROI cropping, some other part that is going to do the feature extraction, some other classification head that does the classification. So on the very top, you can think that there is one neural network that given something is going to happen this, but inside that there are multiple parts we must understand. So very interesting questions are there that how many layers we should deploy. We are not sure about this. How many layers we should deploy? How many units in each layer? If there is one, there are multiple layers. So how many neurons I should put into this particular layer? What should be the learning rate? What is the right activation function? These are the right questions to be asked. So how to answer this question? So if we want to answer this question, this is called the parameter tuning. And let me tell you that this is not a straightforward thing to answer. So you have to be iterative to answer these kind of things, because that's why you come into the picture. Anybody cannot do the data science. If you can do the data science only if you have some kind of domain understanding. If you understand the things, then only you can do. So actually, it is a iterative process. To answer this thing, you actually start by some kind of network. You initially start that looks like that. Let's assume that let's go for this network architecture, and then you go ahead with that. So you get inspired. The first thing is this, that you get inspired by something. For example, if you have done earlier some work and you have heard something, you thought that okay, let us try to do an experiment that whether this particular architecture is going to work or not. So you are going to get expired, and most of the time using philosophy. These things are coming from the philosophy that looks like that. Let me see that whether this is going to work or not. And this is the place where your knowledge and biases are coming to the system. Then definitely you are going to when you understand that, look, let me try, then you are going to do a coding implementation and building the thing, and then you are going to show your model to your training example and fit the model using the training example. And if you find out that how good this particular thing is, you if you evaluate and find out that looks like that my system is good, then you can exit. Otherwise you have to again change. You have to get the inspiration. Okay, looks like that this particular part is not working, let me change that particular part, and then go ahead into the loop. So this is a iterative process. It is not a single thing that you have to do. Multiple things you have to do. So how to, where is the knob? Means if you want to change something, what you have to change? Again, we have seen that most of the time you have to see that what is the performance. For example, evaluation. This evaluation is going to tell you that on what portion you have to do the changes. You know that most of the time the best thing is to look about the overfitting and underfitting and overfitting. So what is overfitting and underfitting? So you know that whenever a data is given to you, so you actually divide this into the two part. What is that? Train, test, and validation. I think we have talked about earlier also. So generally we take the, for example, 80% data for the training and 10% for the validation and 10% for the training. Depends. It depends based on the requirement. Sometimes you take 70% here, 20% here, 10% here, or sometimes you take the 5% over here. So this depends upon the how many examples you have. 5% over here, 15% over here, and 80% over here. All these things are possible. These days into the deep learning scenario, most of the time what happens that you take 95% of the data over here and take 2% of the data over here and 3% of the data over here, because what happens, a lot of data now you have a lot of data. This 3% is sufficient, means this number is also very large in terms of the testing. If the lot of data you have, then you can go for these kind of scenarios also. And most of the time into the deep learning domain, when the number of examples are more, we actually are into this particular scenario where we take only 3%, 2% of the data for the training and testing and validation, small data. So when you build the system, as you know that when you build the system, when you are going to evaluate, so since only training data is shown to you, so you want to see that how good you are. Okay. Underfitting means that your model is actually not that much capable, and even on the training data your accuracy is not that good. So if the training is bad, okay, if on the training, on training you are bad, then it means that you are into the overfitting, underfitting. And into the test, if you test that how good this on the unseen data, you say that here also most probably you would be bad, because it is, if you are not training your thing on the new things, shown things, then how can it will be good on the unseen things? Overfitting, however, is a different, altogether different game, where you say that you are actually make your system very good onto the things, and it is very good over here. Okay, it is very good. But when you go for the testing, here there is a problem. The system is bad over here. However, the best scenario is what? That you should be good into the both the places. So overfitting occurs into this particular scenario. So what should be the solution for the overfitting? You know that two kind of solutions are possible. First, you have to understand that whether you are in into which scenario, you are overfitting or the underfitting. Then you can use this understanding to change something. Okay. So if you are into the underfitting, what you should do? If you are bad at the both the places, what you should do? Looks like that your model is not good. So you should increase the power of increase power the power of your model. How can you do that? You add more layers, add more neurons, different architecture, different powerful architecture. You can go ahead with that. If it is overfitting, then what you should do? You should reduce the model complexity. And two things you can do actually. Two things actually you can do when you are into the overfitting. And one is the increase. Sorry. Decrease model complexity. You can decrease the model complexity or increase training examples. So it is very interesting. Okay, what happens that system is bad over here. If you take some of the example and put it into the training, what would happen? Because you see now where the system is bad into the testing example. If you pick, for example, 2% of the item from here and you put into this 95%, what would happen? This system was good on this example, but now more example has come, the system becomes bad because it was doing error on those unseen things. So definitely what would happen, that system would adjust its parameter in such a way so that it becomes good, and therefore for the remaining one also we hope that it is going to be better. So if you bring more training examples, it is a kind of it is a mechanism to reduce the overfitting. So this is that you can do, and either you can go to the more complex model or you reduce to the things, increase the data, increase the regularization, all these things you can do, and by this you do the hyperparameter tuning. Okay, all these things are called hyperparameter, means how many layers should be there in each layer, how many neurons should be there, what is the architecture, all these things are going to be uh, called as a hyperparameter, and it is a very interesting thing. So when you actually build a model, and now let us talk about a different kind of scenario. When let's assume that we have finalized that I am going to use this particular network architecture. You are going to provide something as a input. So at the output, what you are going to get? Let us just focus on this particular thing. That what is the thing that you are going to get at the output? Okay, with respect to our two scenarios, when I am going to say that my weight is very small, 0.01, our weight is very large, 0.5, weight is large. Or for example, I can say that 7.5, the value is larger, or the value is smaller. If this value is, if the weights are very small, what is going to happen? You know that how you get the output? You use the input value, you multiply with the weights and you get the output, and this output, if the weights are small, is going to be small. Again, let's assume that here the weight are also small, it is again multiplied with a small thing, value becomes a small, value becomes again small, value becomes again small, value again small, again small. So if the weights are, all the weights, let's assume that all the weights are small, what would happen? At the output you are going to get very small values. Okay, you are going to get the very small values. Before the I'm talking about before the activation. So when you apply the activation, what would happen? You know that sigmoid activation function, you know that this kind of function is a sigmoid activation function, where you know that if you on the zero value it gives you 0.5, with the higher value it saturates towards 1, with the smaller value it saturates towards 0. So if the value is very small, you are going to ultimately, what you are going to get? You are going to get something as a 0, and you are actually operating into this particular location area. Once again, if the weights are very small, then you are operating into this particular location. On the contrary, if the weights are very large, what is happened? That whatever input is there, it is going to be amplified, 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 amplified. You are going to provide, for example, if you just consider any particular neuron, the values, the very high value is going to be fed to that particular thing. You are going to get this value. So if the value is very high, you are going to get something over here. So if the value is too small or the value is too large, the issue is this, that you are operating into this particular region. What is the problem with this particular region? You see the gradient at this particular location is very small. You can see the gradient at this particular position is very small. Means what? That if you want to train the thing, you have to flow the gradient inside, and the gradient is very small. Means what? Your system is going to change its parameter very slowly, and therefore finding out the right parameter is going to take too much time. You cannot train. This is a big problem. This is the exploding and uh, vanishing gradient. These are the two important things that people talk about. That exploding gradient means that when the weights are actually larger, then your ultimate output at the place of the output, what happens? That the value becomes very large, and therefore your gradient becomes very small, and you are not learning. If it is vanishing gradient, means if the value is very large, sorry, very small, then weights are very small, then the value that you are going to feed becomes very small at the output, and again you are into this particular area and you are not learning. So the system should be such that it should operate here, you know that, because here the things are better. However, here also we have a small area. For example, if we just consider this particular area, okay, here in this particular region, the value looks like to be linear. Okay, this area is also not good. Why? Because it's a linear thing, na? And we have seen that anything that is linear is not useful for us, because then the very big network becomes what? It collapses and becomes a single neuron. So this is also not a very good area. So somehow you have to be into this particular area to update the things. So better updation would be here, because here non-linearity is also available, so that the big network architecture is exposed to you and you can do the things. So this is a very important problem, and this is just written that, for example, 0.9 to, if you take the multiple time, you multiply 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 0.9 to the power 8 becomes 0.39, very small value. Even 1.5 to the power c 9, how much it is? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So after 7, 8 multiplication, it becomes 25.63. So 1.5 becomes 25. 0.9, that is very near to 1, becomes 0.39. So this is the problem, that if you multiply multiple number of time, the value very quickly becomes very small or very large. And the issue is that your network start learning. So you have to do something so that your values are actually not that bad. Do you understand? Okay. So how can you do that? The point is this, that there should be some mix of these values, so that you are actually operating over here. And as I want to actually, what I wanted to emphasize is this, that the whatever network is learning, this is fine, because if the values become such that you are operating over here and here, it is fine. But at the time of initialization, at least you should be into this particular areas, na? At the time of initialization, you should be into this particular area, so that network find out what is the right parameter. And then if the right parameter are such that you have to be here, then it is fine, there is no problem in that. But if initially we set the parameter in such a way so that you are into this particular area, then you would not be learning anything. Make sense? If you initially don't set the values into right, then your network is not learning. So if this is only the right parameter, I'm okay with that, no problem with that. But what happens that initially these values should not be there. Network keep updating based on your data, and it reaches into this particular, okay, it's fine. But initially you should be starting into this particular area where the network should at least start learning. So that is a very interesting problem, and we should go and try to find out that how can we initialize these parameter. Make sense? So you understand that parameter initialization is important into a network. Parameter initialization is important. Any questions on that? Please let me know that if you have any questions. Anyone? Is it clear? Nobody is writing. Who is there? Yes? Yeah, please. Yes, good. So you understand that if once again, what I wanted to tell, that your parameter should be such that you are actually into this particular area where gradient is such that you are going to learn into the fast way. After that, based on the data, even if you go into this particular region or in this particular region, I'm okay with that, because that was the right parameter. That's fine. But initially you should not go into trap into this particular area, because this means that training becomes very difficult, and weight updation becomes very difficult, and you would not be able to find out the right parameter. Okay. So how to initialize? Okay. So there is one method that randomly you initialize the value. Everybody knows that you can randomly initialize the thing. Okay. But if you randomly initialize, the most probably some value are going to be very large and some values are going to be very small. Then exploding and vanishing gradient problem is definitely going to be going to play a very important role. Okay, vanishing and exploding gradient are going to be a big problem. So this is not a right way. Okay. Okay, so another approach could be that you initialize all the things to be zero weight. So again, this is not a good thing, because if you make all these things zero, means all the weights to be equal, what would happen? If all the weights are equal, what would happen? So means that you are telling that everything is equal. What would happen? That if I update this particular neuron, so how come this neuron is different from the previous one? It is same, because all the values are same. So they are going to update it on the same way. So into the same way, whole network is going to update on the same way. Okay. So they are doing a march past. So they are not going to learn because they are not independent. Every value is going to increase with each other into the same way. So again, there is a problem. You cannot put all these values as a one as a same. Okay. So the problem was that everything becomes symmetric, and therefore right parameter now you cannot discover. So these are the two things that actually people mostly suggest, that if you start thinking about that how to go ahead, this is the starting point, and most of the time this is not good idea. So what is the right idea? The right idea is this. Okay, this is the right idea that says that you make the weights centered around one. Okay, around one. So you what you take that you take the value 1 and you pick any value near about the 1. Okay, so weight should be, initial weight should be 1. Okay, so all the values I cannot even take 1. What should I do? That you do a sampling. So the idea is that you do a sampling. You do a sampling over here. Okay, so you think that there is a normal distribution, and from this where the mean is at 1, then you would like to understand that what is the variance. So variance is going to be very small, because with a very small variance you have to you should pick this particular value. So you know that if multiple layers are there, and let me focus on this particular layer, and I say that the number of neurons here is S1, here now S2, here S3, S4. So if you are going to find out the parameter for this particular layer, so how many parameter it need to find out? Okay, how many weights are there? S2 into the S3. How many parameters? How many weights are there for this neuron? How many weights are there? S2. Any neuron that is into the layer S3 has S2 number of parameter. And or you can say that if something is into SL, lth layer, then how many parameter are there? SL minus 1 number of weights are there. This much weights you have to find out. So the algorithm says that you pick the variance as k divided by SL minus 1, because these many number of values you want. So your variance should be, so we have seen that mean is 1. What is the variance? It is k divided by SL minus 1. So you know that in which layer we are. So this number you can find out from your network. What is k? The k is going to be a value that is being set using heuristics. People has actually done the experiment, and they had come up that these values work better. For example, for the ReLU, they had come up that if the value is k, value of k is equal to 2, then it works better. Similarly, for the sigmoid and tanh kind of activations, if the k is equal to 1, then it works better. So some kind of heuristic has been used, and then this is the variance that we are going to use. Once again, how to find out the parameter? You just focus on a particular, once again, you just focus on a particular layer. In this layer, you find out that what is L, what is SL minus 1, means how many units are there before you. Your mean is going to be 1, and variance is going to be k divided by SL minus 1. If you go into this particular way, this method has a name, is called the Xavier initialization. Make sense? Any questions? So first you understand this. What is Xavier initialization? Xavier initialization is this, that you are going to say that my weights are going to be centered around 1 with the and I'm going to sample from a normal distribution, and where my variance is k divided by SL minus 1. You understand that what these values are. There is one more suggestion. Sometimes people say that instead of using this k upon SL minus 1, you can also utilize this value k upon SL minus 1 plus SL. So this is another approach. Both the approaches people follow. So this is called the Xavier initialization. What does it mean? Okay. Okay. We are going to see that what does it mean. So even then, even then, it may be possible that somewhere the value becomes very large, or somewhere the value becomes very small. For example, when you are going to feed the x over here, at this place, it may be possible that after multiplication, the value becomes very large, or the value becomes very small after doing some kind of operation, some number of operations. So there some a technique comes that is called the gradient clipping, which says that if the value is less than, for example, some value, if this value is less than, for example, 0.5, so you are going to use 0.5. If this value is greater than, for example, 3, then you are going to use 3. So this is called the gradient clipping. If the value becomes very large, then you say that I'm not going to go beyond this particular value. I'm going to use 3 to pass into the next layer. And because it initially it is needed, but after that you can see that values are going to be whatever the correct value are there. So you would be satisfied. Okay. So this method that we seen is called the Xavier initialization. Let us try to understand that how come this, what is the mathematical background, how come this particular thing is coming to us. Okay. So to find out the weight initialization, because we are just talking about the weight initialization right now, and we don't know that what kind of data we have. So let us have some kind of understanding on the data. So let us assume, without loss of generality, we can assume that data is coming from some normal distribution. No problem, because data is coming from, because most of the phenomena that happens into the nature, they are normal distribution. Let's assume that the data is coming from the normal distribution where mu is equal to 0 and sigma is equal to 1. Okay, standard. Any value you can take, and always you can shift the variance, and so that you can always make this thing. So it is without it is, we can, because we have seen now, we can always translate and rotate and scale the data, and this doesn't make effect on uh, our machine learning thing. So so always we can assume, without loss of generality, that things are having mu is equal to 0 and sigma is equal to 1. The only assumption is this, that my data is coming from normal distribution. Again, this is, as I'm telling, that it is most probably going to be, if you are going to do a random observations, so then the most of the things are normal distribution. So we are assuming that my data is coming from the normal distribution. Another assumption that is also a fair assumption is the IID, means all the data that I'm going to get, they are independently sampled. So first data item independently taken, then second item is independently sampled. All these data points are independently coming to me. They don't have any relation. Okay. Then we know that there is we know this, that if we want to find out the variance of the two quantities, for example wi and xi, so it is going to be what, expected value of xi square into variance of wi, expected value of wi square into variance of xi, and the multiplication of variance of xi and variance of wi. We know that if this x is coming from the data, and we know that it is coming from the normal distribution, and mu is equal to 0, means what, that expected value is going to be 0. So this value is 0, this value is also 0. If both the values are 0, so the formula becomes that that variance of multiplication of the two terms wi xi is going to be variance of xi into variance of wi. All right, consider any particular neuron. For example, if I have a neuron, so what is its output? So you know that you apply activation on this, but let us just see unthresholded one, that you say that you are going to find out wn(x1), w2(x2), wn(xn) plus b. You get this particular value from the neuron. For that particular neuron, what is output? This. If you want to find out what is the variance over here, what is the variance into your y, and we can also take it because without thresholding part, because I have told you that mostly we want to work into this particular area where things are a kind of linear. So there's no problem in taking this kind of representation right now. So what I wanted to tell, that if you measure that what is the variance of the y, again you can apply the variance into this side also. You can find out the variance of all these quantity. Here b is a constant, b being a bias, it is a constant. So variance of this particular quantity is actually okay. So let me, because I was finding out the variance of this thing. So variance goes inside, and variance of individual terms, and you know that variance of b is 0 because it is a constant term. Variance of b is equal to 0. Variance of b is equal to 0. And for all these terms, what is the variance? These this variance, I'm going to write the variance of all other terms individually. And again, since our assumption is this, that all the data items have the same variance and they are coming from the same kind of distribution. So even if you see the variance of the first item or second item or third item, it is going to be the same. So let me write it, variance of xi, any particular value. Similarly for the weights also, if I am going to select, because I am going to select the weights also from some kind of normal distribution as we have talked about earlier. So again, this value is also going to be the same for all. Let me write it, variance of wi. So everywhere wi xi, how many terms these are? These are n number of terms. Okay. Or we can say that how, if I'm going to talk about a particular layer, I'm going to talk about the particular layer, and here is the neuron. So and it is into SL. So it is SL minus 1 because these many inputs are going to come. Okay, these many inputs are going to come. So I can write this, that this term multiplied by SL minus 1. So this is what it is. And then let us try to understand one more part that is a very important thing, that if you have a network, okay, and you are going to feed something over here and you are going to get some output over here. So if there is some variance, this variance should also be there in your output also. Okay, otherwise what would happen, that you lose this variance. What we assume, that a variance, whatever variance you are going to feed in, they should also come as an output, because there should be you should preserve this variance. Otherwise you are not representing the data well. So what we think, that this variance, which are actually output, should be the variance of input. This is the input. So input variance and output variance should be same. If they are same, what does it mean? That this quantity, value of this quantity should be what? Value of this quantity should be 1. Value of this quantity should be 1. All right. Then what is the variance of the Wi? If you want to find out the variance of Wi, it is 1 divided by SL minus 1. 1 divided by SL minus 1. So again, the same thing, same formula that few minutes back we have seen into the previous slide, that what is the variance? It is k divided by L minus 1. We have discussed that the value should be k divided by 1 S minus 1, where k was 1 for the sigmoid and tan h, and k is equal to 2 for k was 2 for the ReLU. You have talked about this. So it has been, as I told you, that it has been decided based on some heuristics, that what should be the right value. So this is a kind of relationship that you get, that it should be variance should be inversely proportional to the number of units which are before that particular layer. So so this is the mathematical basis for G-variant isolation. So there is a question, sir, why is the gradient clipping is needed only initially? So actually what happens now, at the time of training only we want to apply those things, because otherwise when I'm testing my system, when my system has been trained, at that time, if I'm training, means what? I am actually changing the data. At that time, what does it mean? That I'm changing the data. So changing the data doesn't make any sense. Means you are actually you are not feeding the same data on which you want to find out the output. Make sense? At the time of yeah, at the time of training, why I'm going to do the clipping? Because I want to learn the weight. At that time it is fine, because I'm not very much interested that actual value is should come to my network, because anyway actual value is not coming out of my network. Some different value would be coming at that particular time. When I'm feeding something, my output is different. That's why I'm propagating the errors. So at that time it is fine, because I'm changing my parameter. I'm getting something so that I can change the network parameter. But at the time when we are actually trained, when actually we are thinking that my value is actually right, at that time if you start doing the things, it becomes absurd. Make sense?
Yes, sir. But sir, initially doesn't mean like the initial iterations of the training, na? It means
Initial
like
training, yes, initial iteration of the training, yeah.
okay. Thank you, sir.
So that's all for today. Thank you very much